Welcome to Talking Halos. This is Derek Ciapola with my co-host, my partners in crime, Jared Timms and Nate Green. We're back, and I'm in the host chair for once. It's been a long time since I've done it, but I have reasons for it. I had two reasons for it. But before I even get into all those reasons, I want to say hello, Jared. What's up, man?
What's up, man? This is a little different. We haven't done this way in wow, quite some time. But I'm excited. Excited to sit
Haven't
back,
done it
relax,
this
and
way.
let you do it. Let you do
Let
your
me
thing.
let me do my thing. Nate, Negative Nancy, what's up?
How we
Negative,
doing?
negative Nate.
Uh,
Come on, it's
I don't
negative
think
Nate.
it's I don't think it's negative. It's realistic, but you know. All right. Good to see you, Derek. I'm
I'm
happy
not
to be
sure.
on.
We're probably gonna upset somebody with that, but
That's fine.
um, we're gonna talk a few things today. Two things in point that we want to get to. First and foremost was the Shohei argument. His pitching performance last night, phenomenal. Meanwhile, the Yankees are tanking. That continues the argument over Judge versus Shohei for MVP. In the meantime, also want to talk about some podcast policy as well. Especially as we head into the off season. That's the reason why I actually said I wanted to host the show tonight, because I want to put this out, because many people don't realize this, because we have a bunch of new listeners. Is I started this podcast, me with John Crane. We started this podcast, and when Jared says we're the best out there, we are. If we're not the best, we're among the best of what we do, and we have been for a long flipping time. So why am I pumped up? Because I'm not mad at anybody. We got a Twitter thing earlier today, and they're kind of hitting on Nate a little bit, and I want to comment on this because I think I think I want to explain the journalistic policy of where Talking Halos came from and where it should always be and where it's always going to go, regardless of who hosts it. And Jared himself's done a phenomenal job continuing on with how our vision was. He's going, okay. So that's from the back end. The Shohei argument, we've been talking about this here and there. I'm going to go over to, well, actually, no, hold on. This is going to be a free flowing show, and we only have 30 minutes. So if we do sponsors, check them out. Bam. All right. So, Jared, your Shohei argument right now, as it stands, after that beautiful 8 inning performance here tonight with that sinker, which is, oh my gosh, it's like sexual chocolate. Okay. So,
I'm gonna let you host.
it's still clean.
I'm gonna let you host this a little bit more, man.
It's still clean. Okay. You're going to let me. How's this man going to tell me he's going to let me host my own show?
Let you host your own show, baby.
Okay. My own. So, Jared, where are you now with Shohei? Honestly,
In what argument? Are we talking MVP? Are we talking Cy Young?
if we're talking right now,
him?
September 4th, if the season ends right now, who's the MVP now?
Okay, there's schools of thought on this one for me, and I go back and forth because Aaron Judge is having a phenomenal year, a career, maybe not even a career year, but like right now, if he ended the season with 53 home runs, it's Shohei Ohtani. And not even a home run argument either. But all in all, it depends. It's going to depend on how Aaron Judge finishes the season. It's his to lose at the moment. You know, if he starts slumping a little bit, Shohei is going to take it. The writers are going to take it from Judge. But Aaron Judge is having a historic season. Not very many guys have hit as many home runs as he has. Not very many guys have actually carried a team on their back, you know, to the playoffs, because we know the Yankees aren't playing all that well right now. And you know, when you look at value, when you look at most valuable player, it's tough not to give it to Aaron Judge. However, you look at what Shohei Ohtani's doing, and he's the only one to ever have done it. And he's having a better pitching season, and we can make an argument that he's a Cy Young Award winner as well. And that's maybe for a different podcast, but it's close. I give the edge to Aaron Judge ever so slightly, ever so slightly at the moment. I know you listeners are going to be like, Jared's been crushing the Shohei Ohtani MVP. And I think that there's an argument to be made there, but at the moment, Judge has a slight advantage just because of what he's done in this second half to actually, like, that AL East is really, really good. You never know what's going to happen. And Aaron Judge has single-handedly, you know, brought them to where they are. And that's what you want out of an MVP, you know. Shohei, I don't want to bring the win-loss record into this because I don't like that. I think it's the best player. I think the best player in baseball. It's been, you know, but you know, when Aaron Judge is doing what he's doing, it's tough. So Cy Young, maybe a little bit different argument, but Shohei Ohtani finishes second in both. I could totally see that as well. So
Nate?
Yeah, Sunday became a career year for Aaron Judge. Sunday, he hit his 53rd home run, drove in his 115th RBI. That was a career year for him. His best year before that was 52 and 114. So I still think it's Judge's to lose again. I know people are going to be upset about that as well, but Aaron Judge has been unbelievable. And you want to say the Yankees have been a great team, they have, but it's because of Aaron Judge. That lineup right now in the last month and a half, maybe even 2 months, it looks as bad as the Angels lineup. As weird as that sounds, they are running guys out there that are WRC plus in the 75 range. Josh Donaldson is not a good player right now. DJ LeMahieu is not who he was. Gleyber Torres is not who he was in the first half. They're running Isaiah Kiner Falefa out there, who's basically a better Andrew Velasquez, maybe. Like they're very, very similar players. So I think Aaron Judge, with what he's done this year, has been outstanding. Shohei Ohtani has done things that nobody has ever done before, but I think there's going to be a little bit of we gave it to him last year because he did both, not because his numbers were better than Vlad's offensively, but because Vlad didn't pitch. So I think the writers are going to kind of be like, all right, how many years in a row are we going to give this guy MVP just because he does both? And I think that's going to be a fair thing to say. And unless he just makes this thing very, very close offensively or gets his ERA, in the really low twos, it's going to be really tough for Aaron Judge to lose this thing.
Well, I think we're talking about Aaron Judge. I if I'm flipping it over, it's kind of hard for me to imagine a two-way player splitting his time getting the MVP if you're not even there, if you're not there for the Cy Young, right? And the truth is, he's probably right now, in my view, third in Cy Young. Third,
I have him a second.
Second or third.
Yeah,
you can make a good argument for either one, right?
Yeah. I think there's a clear cut number one right now, and I think that 2, 3 is an argument, and then after that,
who's your number one? Who's your clear cut number one?
Justin Verlander. I think Justin Verlander's the number one in my opinion. Yeah. And then you can make an argument both ways for Cease and Ohtani being 2, 3 at the moment.
I don't see he's a clear cut number one because he's out. He's out. He's at 24 starts.
Yeah. Same thing with McClanahan too. Like if McClanahan doesn't start the rest of the season, or if Judge doesn't, or not Judge, wow, if Verlander doesn't start the rest of the season, then I'm 100% agreement with you guys that, or 100% agreement with you, Derek, that it's between Ohtani and Cease. I don't think anybody else is really that close.
Yeah, and I look at this and I go, well, Cease has a start on him. He's got a complete game shutout. He's got a better ratio from innings to hits. He's got a better ratio pretty much everywhere except for strikeout to walk, which I cannot believe that how good Ohtani's been on walks this year. So I kind of look at that race and I go, hitting wise, he's down there 30 home runs, and combined, goes back to our argument before he needs to start at least.
Yeah,
he needs to start and perform well the rest of the way.
So I mean, if you were looking to compare him here, and I did this today on Twitter. I compared Shohei Ohtani to the top 7 Fangraphs WAR starting pitchers, and here's how Ohtani ranks against Dylan Cease. Ohtani's 11-8. Cease is 13-6. I know wins, losses don't matter all that much, but you got to throw it in there.
Due to writers.
Yeah, the writers are going to probably vote a little biased to that. Shohei Ohtani's at a 4.4 Fangraphs WAR. Dylan Cease is at 3.8. Ohtani's at a 4.6 Baseball Reference WAR, and Dylan Cease is at a 5.5. Ohtani is 20 innings behind Dylan Cease exactly at the moment. Dylan Cease has Ohtani by 0.4 ERA on that side of things. Ohtani has Cease by 0.6 FIP in that category. Strikeouts, Ohtani is down by 16 strikeouts. Walks amongst qualified starters, Dylan Cease is dead last at 64. Ohtani is tied in 8th at 33, which is impressive with that's where I think it really matters. In FIP, Ohtani has it by 0.04, so it's very, very close in WHIP. Cease is not giving up nearly as many hits, but he's getting a lot of guys on base there with the walk category. And then batting average against Dylan Cease has a .185. Ohtani has a .212. So, like I said, it's a toss up between those two at that spot. So, just depends on what Verlander does down the road.
And it sounds like Verlander's coming back from what everyone is reporting. He should be back first, right when his 15 days are up. So that would probably push him to the lead barely, I think, just because of what he's done this year. I mean, he has been the best pitcher in baseball.
Hold on one second. I actually just saw something on Verlander here right as I was checking the stats, and I'm not so sure that's actually the case. I'm checking now. Checking.
Just read something that said won't be eligible the first day, but is expected to be sidelined. Isn't expected to be sidelined far beyond his 15 days.
Let's see.
So it would just be
Let's see how many he misses. Does that mean? Yeah, we'll see. I guess from my point of view is when it comes to him winning the MVP. Did he do enough? I'm not even thinking the pitching side. Like if you're second place pitching, like if you're second in Cy Young, like even third. So let's say he stays here, makes the start, and he stays in the conversation on the hitting side. Then you can make a pretty cohesive argument, combine it all, MVP. But that's not really always the way of thinking. So Nate, when you're looking at the numbers here both ways, and how are you kind of thinking what's the MVP here, what's not?
So for me, I'm taking a little bit into last year where Vlad and Ohtani were pretty close offensively, and the pitching just kind of put Ohtani over. This year, Judge it's almost double of what Ohtani's been this year. You know, he's got 53 homers compared to 30. He's got 115 RBIs. He's leading off half the time. He's playing a position which I think gives him a little bit of an edge there. I know Ohtani's pitching, but you guys are already bringing that into the conversation. So I think we do have to bring into the conversation Judge plays a tough position in center field.
And then league average center field.
He has been league average, but the fact that he is going from right field to center field at age 30 he was a center fielder in college, went from right field to center field at age 30 because Aaron Hicks was hitting 215 and was putting up a WRC plus in the 60 range. And the Yankees said, hey, we're better on the field with Judge playing center field. Would you play center field? The other thing too, center field is a lot tougher on the body. Okay. You are doing a lot more than you are as a DH,
pitching.
As a pitcher, fine. That's a lot on the body, but I'm saying like from right field to center field, it's one of the reasons why Ichiro preferred right field over center field because it's less on the body. Yeah. So the fact that he, who has been injury prone in his career, has moved positions to a premier position and has stayed healthy so far. Hopefully he stays healthy. We never root for injuries, no matter who it is. If he can stay healthy, I think he's done enough offensively to win this award.
I definitely don't disagree with you. I think that it's, like I said, I think it's judged by a hair at the moment. I don't think how we had that argument a couple weeks ago. I don't think Judge has run away with it necessarily at the moment. I think that he's been very, very good. But as good as Judge has been offensively, Ohtani has been just as good on the pitching side of things, and he's hitting very, very well right now. I think he's got a 160 WRC plus over his last 30 games or so. So he's been a lot better on the offensive side of things. I don't know if you can look that one up or not, but yeah, he's been a lot better on the offensive side of things in the first half. And like I said, I don't disagree with you. I think that Judge has it by a hair, but it's still very, very close. And at the moment, I give it to Judge. But Shohei Ohtani gets another 3-4 really good starts like he put up last night. And also another thing, how much do you want Ohtani pitching this much down the stretch? Like I know you want him, I know he wants to win MVP, but like you got to look forward to next season, right? At some point, like, Shohei, let's dial it back a notch. 111 pitches this late in the season. Guy who's already had Tommy John, guy who's had some injuries before. That's worrisome, very worrisome to me, especially since we've talked about Angels possibly trading him this offseason. The whatever might happen this offseason with Shohei Ohtani and the Angels being sold, like there's that has to start being a factor is, hey, like, you're at 100 pitches. I get that you want to win the MVP, and that's not who Ohtani is 100%. He's going to go out there and compete and be the best that he can. But from a next year perspective, I'd prefer he not get hurt.
I'm fine with him throwing 110 pitches as long as he's not pitching on shorter rest. If he's staying on his normal rest and you're not pushing him to throw, oh, hey, we need you to throw on 4 days rest instead of your normal, 5 or 6 days rest. That's where I think what the problem would be, because you're 28 games out of the division and 17 games out of the wild card. So there's no point to be doing that just to win an MVP. And you can say just to win an MVP, it's special. I know that, but the fact that you're risking injury with a guy just to throw him an extra start to win an MVP, that would be where I would draw the line. But letting him pitch, I'm fine with that.
Took it the right turn there. It just kind of process. I was like I said it last night too. I was like 111 pitches. Like, I'd like to see him in a pennant race rather than win an MVP or win a Cy Young, which is fantastic. I love that, but I want to see him in a pennant race next season.
But then again, maybe that's what he needs. Maybe what he needs mentally is that feeling.
Yeah.
He's been developing that sinker up. I would say I agree with Nate. As long as you're not messing with the schedule, as long as you're not taking him out of routine, I think that you stick with what's working for you. Personally, would I like them to? There's a lot of me that says, okay, listen, you're not winning anything. Let's tease our guys a shot. Let's shut you down and, keep you healthy. But you don't tell a competitor to do that. You don't tell Shohei Ohtani that.
I wouldn't be happy. I know Nate.
He's earned the right to.
Yeah.
Plus,
you want him to stay, don't start shutting him down now and controlling him. Let the guy do what he, at this point, you got to trust him to make the right call. I also want to point this out, and Nate, this is slight disagreement. This is, we can bicker over this night and day. But, being in DH is not easy either. Of course, it's not harder physically on you. I mean, outside the whole pitching or 5 days thing, like Jared, but to just come cold out of the box and just go hit when sitting there for 3 innings, that's not easy either. And so his job overall, what he's done, even if he does not win MVP, is phenomenal. And it's hard for me to make any kind of comparison to a center fielder. We've seen firsthand with Trouty's injuries that what that center field does wear and tear on you, but mentally it's a challenge being a DH. And that's why there's been so few successful ones over the course of who've been career successful ones over the years. So, I just want to point that out. That's just small.
Oh yeah, no, that's
nitpick on that.
Of course.
And this takes me to where we want to go here to end the show. And I'm a little pumped up because that was me on Twitter today. Those of you who don't see Mr. C on Twitter very often, making the discussion. And I want to bring this back. This podcast was created in April of 2019. The reason why it was created was because as a person who had been a journalist who covered the Angels for a couple different outlets, who had covered the Rams, who has been covering the Rams, I noticed one very real problem, that at the time, the Dodgers just basically got all the coverage. The Angels didn't really have much media with them. I still don't think they have a whole lot. There's more. But I felt like this club has enough of a history to deserve good coverage of them. And that also means there has to be integrity to it. We would be completely dishonest if we just sat here and were all negative about everything all the time and just gave you that perspective. And we would be just as dishonest if we were to give you popcorn and unicorns, like I mentioned earlier on Twitter, and that's all it ever was. And if you're the kind of person who gets tired of a person's negativity, Nate, you gotta, you're a fan. Those of you who listen to us, you're fans too. You have been there those last 6-7 years. You've seen it all. And if you go into any Facebook group, if you go into any other group out there, any message board that covers Angels right now, I guarantee you got people like at the cliff getting ready to jump off and go. We don't do that. We don't do that here. So if I'm going to say this flat out, if you're a listener, we're glad you're here. We're glad if you're a listener or watcher, if you're on YouTube, or if you're on here, we're glad you're here. We are glad that you enjoy this podcast. And most of all, we are glad that you are on this roller coaster with us every flipping year. We're dishonest if we don't tell you how we feel as we cover this team. And if Nate's feeling like, and I'm picking on Nate a little bit,
You're fine.
if he's feeling like there's not a whole lot to talk about positive, we're going to say do it. And that's why you have me and you have Jared, who have a little bit of a different point of view. I am more bullish on the Angels' future. I think they are. I think they are on the right path. I think it's been held back by certain people. Yeah, Artie. And I think that Jared has a similar perspective. Okay, but we're never going to have any of our podcasters ever not be who they are. And if that is an issue, there are other podcasts out there. And that's okay. We're not for everybody.
Probably not as good as us, though.
I just want to point that out. That's why I want to take time and make sure that our listeners understand that our guys, we are what we call a commentary journalism, which means we will cover a story, but we will give our takes on it. And sometimes our takes are not going to make us popular. I've seen takes that Jared has made that I am like, what the bleep are you saying, dude? But yet, it's his view, and he actually is pretty educated on the topic. Nate and I don't always agree on everything. We had a little disagreement a couple weeks ago, and that's how it's going to be. But nothing breaks the bond that we love this team. And so if you want to be on that ride with us as we head into the offseason, as we cover free agency, all the trades, everything else goes in between, as we cover the minor leagues, because as we cover spring training, as we cover every part about this franchise, we're here. But do not expect any of our podcasters here to not be who they are. And by the way, I've heard Nate on the show, and he's not always negative, but he's just not going to give you a line of BS. So there you go. That's why I wanted to make sure I hosted the show. It's been a while since I've hosted the show, because I am the founder of the show, even though have not been around as much. And these guys have every blessing from us and Blue Wire Network to speak their mind. Bam.
Thanks, Derek.
Shout out Blue Wire.
Yes, Blue Wire. Those are our guys. Okay. So Nate, give me your latest negative podcast thought.
I'm actually not negative on the future. I think the Angels have a good future. They've got really good pitching. The pitching's been good. The one thing that I'm worried about, obviously, is are we going to spend money this offseason? Because you need to spend money to win this next year. You can't run out the same team as you're running out right now and hope that some of these kids that, everyone's super excited about Neto. Neto's got like 100 ABs in the minor leagues. Like, let's slow down on him a little bit and let him mature and let him get a little bit of professional baseball under his belt before we start naming him the next, fill in the blank, whoever you want. But I think Neto's going to be a very good player. I just think it's going to take some time. And I think in order for him to get some time, you're going to have to spend some money. And like Derek has already talked about, are the Angels going to spend money this year? Maybe. We don't know. So that's the one thing that's going to be interesting. Will they go out and sign Xander Bogaerts? Will they go out and sign a Trey Turner? Or are they just going to say, you know what, Fletcher and Rengifo, that's going to be up the middle for next year. And, we're going to run the same pitching rotation out there. And hopefully this team wins 85 to 90 games.
Jared.
Neto is going to be a very good second baseman when they sign a shortstop at some point.
And I want to make this argument here. I would tell you this: the Angels can be very careful with guys like Nato and so on and so forth, because I think one of the biggest problems developmentally with the Joe Adell, with Suarez, Griffin Canning, is that these guys in 2019 and afterwards were pushed through that system, and all of a sudden they're making MLB debuts long before they were ready. I think that's actually what's hurt Adell. I think when Adell's stuff got messed around the last couple of years, now we're seeing the fruit of that. Let these guys make their way through the system. in the meantime, spend the money to compete, and all of a sudden you have a young farm system that's fully developed and ready to go. The Angels have failed at this. And I'm going back to 2019, especially when we started this podcast. We saw Griffin Canning get pulled up that year. We saw Matt Dice get pulled up that year. Who else? We have barely even seen Matt Dice since then, by the way. Suarez gets pulled up that year. I mean, all these guys get pulled up that year because there was no depth in the major league roster, and it's been a problem ever since. You want to fix yourself developmentally, give these guys a time in the minors to get ready. Don't push them up, and it happens when your major league roster is hot garbage. And it's had moments when it's been hot garbage. I thought this year's roster was talented. It just didn't work out. Nothing worked this year. Everybody got hurt. I'm not putting that on this year's roster. I'm putting on past rosters. So there now. I gave you something to talk about, Jared. Go.
And so it kind of sounds like how we ended last season and the season before, but not to be negative or anything like that, because I do see a bright future with the Angels. I really do, especially with how much I think everybody knows I cover the minor leagues. Absolutely love it. And I think there's a lot of good talent. That leads me to a question, and let's discuss this next podcast, because I brought it up with Nate, and it's kind of an interesting thing to think about. With new ownership, does what you were talking about change? Does the sense of pressure go off Perry's shoulders, off of what Billy's shoulders probably were with Artie, what Depoto's shoulders probably were with Artie and Socha? You kind of get what I'm saying. Like, you're not going to push guys through as quickly. You're not going to take as many risks in the top of drafts, such as, drafting prep guys. And I don't think we've seen Perry take very many risks in the draft at all. I think they've all been pretty safe. And I think that we saw Billy to make some pretty safe picks at the end of his tenure in Reed Detmers. But I think that it's an interesting thing to think about, and we can, think about it and discuss it next podcast. New ownership may, pull back a pressure lever and say, hey, let these guys develop in the minors. We'll let you do your thing. Whereas I like what they're doing in Double-A. I think it's really, really interesting. Should Sam Bachman be there? Probably not. Should Zach Neto be there, even though he's crushing it? Probably not. However, Tri-City is a tough place to hit, and I don't think I would put him there either. Sonny DeShara, same thing. I don't think he should be there. I think that he should be in high A, but it's a tough place to hit, so you can't put somebody there. There's a lot of guys, where you can slow down development a lot. And I think that might be something we see, like I said, with new ownership. So something to think about moving forward, if that might be something that, Perry does, or if that's his philosophy. So that's my final thought before we let everybody go.
Nate?
Rooted in Inland Empire. Inland Empire's their magic number is 3 from clinching a playoff spot. That would be 2 minor league teams in the playoffs for the first time in a long time for the Angels. So those kids need the playoffs. I think it'd be really fun to see Kiro and Vera and Placencia and Guzman, all these guys, Calabrese, all these guys get into a playoff series and get to play some extra games, get some more ABs, because like we talked about, these guys need it. They're young. They need to get better.
Well, in my closing, I would say that don't look at this team right now and be like, oh, wow, geez, they're awful. And there's a whole lot of awful there. I've been a big fan. My term for the longest time has been organizational depth. Organizational depth. If one of the things that it can always be a great discussion with any Angels fan is when you get into the minor leagues. So Jared covers the minor leagues a lot. Check out some of his work. Learn more about the entire organization and where they're going, because it'll give you a clear picture and it make us all more knowledgeable fans. The reason why I'm saying that is because there's a lot interesting going on. As I've delved more into this current minor league system, it is very, very interesting. The top 30 for this roster, for that top 30 prospects, and there has completely flipped in the last 2 years. And that brings a lot of intrigue to me. Safe picks draft wise, maybe. But when you need major league ready talent, you got to make the safe picks. I can't wait till they get to the point where they don't need MLB ready talent anymore, to where they can take the risks on guys they can develop. Well, here's a question I want us to answer in a show. Do the Angels believe they can develop these guys and stars? Because it's been a long time since they've done that.
What position?
Is the culture at that point where they believe they can do it?
What position? Because I think they've developed pitching. I think they've shown that they can develop pitching. We've seen Reed Detmers take that next step. We've seen Patrick Sandoval take that next step last year and continue to take that next step this year. I think you look at the minor league system and you've seen these pitchers continue to get better each and every year. Like we talked about, Kai Busch was a high pick last year. He has been really, really good this year. So I think they can develop pitching. The one thing that's going to be, can they develop hitting? Neto's been really good so far, but we haven't really seen a real developed superstar hitter in a while. Fletcher's been a major leaguer. Jared Walsh has been a major leaguer. Taylor Ward, major leaguer. But can they develop that next, superstar that they need to get them over the edge? I don't know. But I know they can develop pitching. And if you can develop enough pitching, you can get a player to help you, because every team always needs pitching.
Hold on a minute. Stop. If we're going to sign off here, but there was a whole lot of positive coming from you there, Nate. So our friend who we were tweeting with earlier, there you go. There's that you were looking for that. You said you wanted it, you got it, and he did that voluntarily. So that said, it's time for us to go. Jared, take us home, please, on the Twitter handles and get us out of here.
All right. Thank you all so much for listening to this podcast here at Talking Halos, again, making us the best podcast out there. You could go ahead and follow us wherever you are listening. You can follow us on all our social medias as well, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Just look up Talking Halos. You can follow myself on Twitter, Jared_Tims, Derek at D Ciapola, and Nate at Nate Green 34. Guys, thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your day.